Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
The rules are old that we are living by.
Multiple arrests at a logging blockade on Vancouver Island. Also,
our cost structure is very high, and that means that we're continuing to go into debt.
Money to help BC's major tourist attractions suffering through COVID-19. But is it enough? And
just a rush of emotions.
How a lifetime of work led to this BC fighter being crowned MMA world champion.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Police moved in on a logging blockade this morning on Vancouver Island.
As Susanna De Silva reports, several protesters were arrested after refusing to leave the area near Port Renfrew.
We're not gonna take it anymore.
They came to show support for those on the other side, while everyone waited, unsure of exactly how the day would unfold.
I'm prepared to get arrested today. Old growth is worth more standing.
The police were ready with officers and ground and air support, planning to enforce a court injunction to allow logging in the area.
My beef is not with the loggers. I was a logger myself at one time. It's not with the RCMP. They're just here doing their job. The problem we have in Canada-wide, I would say, is that our governments have served industry from the very beginning.
But no arrests would happen here.
At this point, we're going to let them through, and we'll just be voicing our message loud and clear.
On the other side, protesters were ready for what was coming.
The only thing that's important right now, right here, there's lots going on in the world, but this is ours. This is ours to protect.
Grandmother Val Embry says actions like this have made a difference in the province before.
I'm here to protect the old growth. If that requires me to be arrested, if that's the only way to move this conversation forward, then I'll be arrested.
Is there anything I can say or do that it would convince people to leave?
And after some last-minute conversations, police moved in. Val Embry was the first one. Then police continued to move in on two others who had chained themselves to a gate.
The land, the trees, the forest belong to the people, the First Nations, and all people, just not a few select industry who can come and cut down the last old growth.
The time is now. This fight isn't going to wait until tomorrow.
We're taking a very slow and methodical approach. Again, we want to make sure that everybody's given a fair amount of opportunity to leave without getting arrested.
The RCMP says it doesn't know exactly how many people are inside the area and that it could take as long as a week to clear everyone out, while those trying to stop the logging say they won't give up.
One more standing.
Susanna De Silva, CBC News, Vancouver.
Two teens charged in the stabbing death of a Surrey mechanic have been found guilty of second-degree murder. Delphin Paul Prestbachmo was fatally stabbed in a parking lot near Semiahmoo Shopping Centre in 2019. Two teenage boys, aged 15 and 16, were charged. RCMP say the attack was unprovoked, but the three did know each other to some degree. A date for sentencing will be set in June.
The province is propping up tourism sites hit hard by the pandemic. $50 million earmarked for major attractions across BC.
Tanya Fletcher has reaction from operators who say it helps in the short term but falls short in the long term.
These sites are part of BC's world-renowned tourism industry.
And now those landmarks can get a piece of the $50 million pie being dished out by the province. Major attractions that usually see 75,000 visitors a year will be eligible for $1 million. And for smaller attractions that welcome 15,000 visitors a year, $500,000 will be available.
Thank you for coming.
The one-time funding is expected to help 70 anchor attractions province-wide, 30 urban and 40 rural. Tour bus companies are also eligible.
It can be used for a number of things to offset fixed costs like payroll, rent, utilities, and other costs that have been accrued over the past number of months.
Well, I think it's a very good first step.
As a large attraction, Science World will be able to tap into $1 million. Great in the short term.
We will use it to keep our doors open, to keep bringing science-based programs to the people of British Columbia, the kids of British Columbia. employing staff.
But with an 80% cut in revenue this past year and a staff roster that's gone from 240 to just 80 people, it won't fix the long-term challenges. Those pandemic problems aren't unique, plaguing the PNE perhaps worst of all.
$1 million, although we are incredibly thankful for that concrete step forward, is not going to be enough at this point.
Vancouver Mayor Kennedy Stewart expressing disappointment, saying, quote, the PNE needs the same level of support other fairs across the province and Canada are getting from senior levels of government. Otherwise, the PNE as we know it can't continue to exist. The normally profitable PNE is already more than $8 million in debt, and it's projecting another $8 million into the red by year's end.
Because of the sheer size of our organization, the costs that we cannot mitigate, things like insurance and utilities, our cost structure is very high, and that means that we're continuing to go into debt.
The deadline to apply for the grant is June 7th. The money should start flowing in July. Is it enough? Well, not to pull many through the pandemic, but at this point, they say, anything is better than nothing. Tanya Fletcher, CBC News, Vancouver.
BC is reporting 411 new cases of COVID-19 today, the lowest daily total since early March. 360 people are in hospital, 127 in intensive care. And more than 55% of those eligible have now received at least one dose of the COVID vaccine.
Meanwhile, for those hitting the gym, masks are now required to be worn at all times in fitness facilities. That includes during workouts. This also includes gyms, fitness studios, and dance studios. Anyone without a mask or who refuses to follow the rules could be fined $230. Vancouver police are hoping new DNA testing will help solve a 7-decades-old double murder case.
The so-called Babes in the Woods case has baffled investigators since remains of 2 young boys were discovered way back in 1953.
Again, it's a case that's really puzzled investigators for over 70 years.
A troubling case, still a mystery. The remains of 2 young boys discovered by a groundskeeper in Stanley Park. Investigators believe their bodies were placed there. A woman's fur coat had been laid over the bodies.
There was some clothing on them that had deteriorated. There was an old picnic basket near them with, I believe, petrified food still inside it. And there was an old hatchet, which we believe was the weapon that was used to kill the boys.
It's believed the boys, aged 7 and 8, were killed in 1948, 5 years before the discovery. Now the case is again under the microscope, this time using modern DNA forensics, VPD partnering with Massachusetts-based Redgrave Research.
And we're hoping that with the help of the Redgrave team, we will finally be able to put a name to these boys who were discovered and potentially identify the person who killed them.
The relatively new crime-solving technology uses private databases, linking DNA samples from the victims to any possible surviving family members.
It is highly possible that the killer of these boys was either a parent or someone who is close with one of the parents. So knowing who they are would go a long way to being able to ID who killed them.
One of the theories that has prevailed over the years is that this may have been somebody, or was likely somebody, who knew the boys and possibly somebody who cared for the boys.
The hope now that it moves beyond theory, so the Babes in the Woods case can, after all these years, finally be put to rest.
Vancouver Council has formally apologized for its discriminatory decisions that stopped the Komagata Maru from docking in 1914.
Now, therefore, I, Kennedy Stewart, Mayor of the City of Vancouver, on behalf of this council, do hereby formally and sincerely apologize to the victims, their descendants, and all others impacted from Vancouver City Council's June 29th, 1914 resolution and the cruel effects it had on individuals and families affected by the Komagata Maru incident.
The apology marks the upcoming 107th anniversary of the ship's arrival in Vancouver's harbor. Mayor Kennedy Stewart has also declared May 23rd as the first Komagata Maru Remembrance Day. The ship was carrying South Asian passengers who were stranded aboard for 2 months before they returned back to India.
Well, people living in camper vans and cars in East Vancouver have been ordered to leave.
We want to be left alone a bit. We don't want to be harassed every day with like we're doing some criminal act when all we do is chose to not live in a high-density high-rise.
A dozen people parked at East 12th and Slocan have until the 26th to move. They say they won't until they're offered social housing.
Well, that was quite a night on the South Coast. People jolted awake by a rare and noisy thunderstorm and lightning storm.
Yeah, some people apparently slept through it.
I sleep with white noise.
All right, well, Joe has more in a second, but first, here's some of the thunderous show caught on video.
Meteorologist Johanna Wagstaffe joins us now. Joe, Mother Nature put on quite the show there. That's pretty incredible.
Oh, it was amazing. I can't believe you slept through it. I mean, the big question is, did your baby sleep through it?
She did. So clearly something's going on in my house. We
Mm-hmm.
couldn't hear anything last night.
Yeah, okay, there we go. I'm happy to hear that. It was noisy and loud and bright and spectacular. I've actually set it back on the radar so you can see the line that rolled through Metro Vancouver, sort of between 11:30 and 1 a.m. There it is, 61 lightning strikes just for Vancouver, most of them getting very close to a cloud to ground in downtown Van and East Van. It was another exciting day of weather once again for our Tuesday. I'll take you through what's in store as we head into a long weekend coming up later in the show.
Yeah, we sure know you loved it. That's for certain. All right,
I
Joe,
did.
thanks. Talk again in a bit. Well, a Richmond athlete has made history in the world of mixed martial arts. Arjan Bhullar is the first South Asian world champion.
As John Hernandez reports, the athlete hopes he can encourage more young people from the community to chase their dreams.
Don't forget. All right, hand there from Bhullar, stunned it. The fight was scheduled for 5 rounds. The referee calls it. It's an Indian world champion. But Arjan Bhullar finished it in 2. An historic victory for Bhullar, who's from Richmond, BC. He's the first mixed martial arts world heavyweight champion of Indian descent.
Just a rush of emotions, you know, a lifetime of work. I can't say I was surprised or crazy elated because it went according to plan, but I was just fired up.
Bhullar's family immigrated to Canada from northern India. He started wrestling not long after learning how to walk, trained by his father.
Every step of the way, I've been representing my culture and my roots.
A career that took him to the Commonwealth Games, the Olympics, and then through the doors of a mixed martial arts gym.
I knew he was coming in with a tremendous foundation. And then I found out after that, too, that his family's been wrestling for generations.
MMA coach Adam Ryan has been by his side ever since, cornering all of Bhullar's contests except for his most recent championship bout. The fight was in Singapore, and travel concerns kept Ryan home.
The hardest part was the night of the fight not being there. I just had all these emotions flood into my head, and I just wrote a poem.
Nerves that were alleviated by the time the fight was over. Those who have followed Bhullar's career from the start call him a trailblazer.
I think for a lot of guys out there and a lot of girls out there as well who are wrestlers or who are fighters, they're going to look back at this moment and say, if this guy can do it, I can do it too.
Success the champ hopes to share with his fans in India once it's safe.
I want to take the belt back to our village where the family originally came from for a better life here in Canada.
A life that can inspire others to compete and to win. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Really a big deal, a great victory for the entire South Asian community here and for all British Columbians.
Yeah, for sure. Congratulations to him. Okay, from the ring to the rink and during the NHL playoffs here on CBC, just a reminder of how and where you can watch this newscast.
We will be on every weekday at 6 p.m. online, streaming on CBC Gem, YouTube, and Facebook. And then we'll be on air after the hockey game each evening on television.
Now, those times will vary depending on when the game starts and ends. And you can always watch our show on demand streaming at our website, cbc.ca/sports. It's been a year of compressed classes, remote learning, and masks. So many masks. Coming up, some Surrey high schoolers speak about what school's been like in the pandemic. And thanks for staying with us during our commercial-free live stream tonight. Well, a Newfoundland man who was headed to the bank to cash a check ended up having to chase it down.
And while there were no cameras to capture what happened, a few CBC producers decided to tell the story creatively. Take a look.
Yeah, so between the jigs and the reels with COVID, so for the first time in 20 years, I actually get a check from Canada Revenue instead of auto deposit. But what am I supposed to do with a check? So I walk up to the door at the bank, and of course it was blowing a gale that day, and I'm fumbling with the mask trying to put it on, and of course the check is in my hand instead of my wallet. So what do you think happened to the check? Well, the wind decided to take it out of my hand, and the rest of it seemed to play out like a Mr. Bean skit. It floated around for about probably 30 seconds, doing its best autumn leaf impression and coming almost to the ground where I'd almost reach it, and the wind would take it and blow it away again. So after about maybe 30, 40 seconds, it decided to land itself up on the subway sign, the adjacent building next door to the TD Bank. So this sign, if you can kind of visualize it, it's about 20 feet in the air. So I'm thinking, like, what am I supposed to do with this thing now? Yeah, so my wife's there. She's just laughing away. And she said, well, why don't you just go inside and ask them if they got a ladder? So I go in there and I hang my head down. I say, well, I kind of got an awkward situation. You probably never heard it before. She said, well, I'll go have a look. And she came out and she said, oh, great. She said, I got a ladder here. But it was a 5-foot step ladder. And I'm 5'9", so I still got about 10 feet to make up at this point. And then the wife comes out and she says, well, we still got the snow brush here. Perfect. So I take the snow brush and I give it a little nudge, and what do? I just poke it further in where I can't actually see it at all now. I said, well, what am I supposed to do now? And so the wife said, maybe, she said, we got some tape or something we can put on it. I said, we don't have any tape. So the girls from the store were still kind of monitoring what was going on. She said, oh, we got some tape back there. So anyway, they bring out some packaging tape. So I wrap that around reverse side around the brush, and I stick it up there and poke around the back, and yeah, so there we go. Check comes out on the tape. And the moral of the story for me is do not pack your snow brush away until tax season's over.
Well, that's probably a good thing to remember. And of course, you can now deposit your checks just using your phone, right?
This is true. I do it all the time.
There you go.
So then you don't have to worry about these.
Blow away in the wind. All right, back in just a second. Here's a look at downtown Vancouver on this Tuesday night at 6:19.
Schooling Under Stress is a CBC series that dives into the impact of COVID on our education system.
Teachers say most students, with a little help, will rebound from the pandemic school year.
Tonight, Belle Puri of the CBC Impact team shares the thoughts and opinions of 5 Surrey high school students.
Surrey took on a quarter system this year following the period of online schooling, which was unique to COVID-19. Naturally, the workload got heavier and the pacing got faster despite having only 2 courses per quarter. And then at the same time, most schools for senior grades implemented a hybrid learning style. So on some days there would be in-person classes, and on other days they would be online. From my personal experience at Semiamu, I found that students face burnout much quicker than before.
Some people, if they're very smart, are able to maintain those very high percentages like 96, 97, which most universities are looking for. But I feel like a regular student, it's gotten very much tougher to excel, or even not even about getting grades, but like learning and understanding and completely knowing the material that you're doing is so much harder in courses like physics, chemistry, biology, math, English, and these are all vital subjects that we need to know for the future and for ourselves.
I agree. I feel like we're learning 4 days, of 4 days of work in one day. It's a lot to process, and then we're evaluated on it like almost every single week, and it gets very tough because we're not used to this. And I agree, if they prioritized the grade 11s and 12s and we were if we were full-time or we had the semester system, it would have been better, because I know the junior grades come in every single day and they stay full-time, but I feel like if the grade 11s and 12s are full-time right now, it would have been way more helpful for our learning and our future.
Everybody was talking about maybe adding more TAs for students to get help from, because it is harder now to catch up, but more TAs would just help us a lot. And I know in grade 12, maybe even more of the students, I know that we're gonna struggle next year. I could just feel it. So getting more TAs would really help. And I know some of the students really agreed on that, and we want to push forward with that.
Right now, building a foundation for the younger grades is also very beneficial, because these kids just came into high school full online learning, and I feel like that has been a really difficult shift for them as well. And also teachers were struggling in the beginning, and I feel like if the principals or like the board held a team's introduction for the teachers, that would have really helped, because I know from my personal experience, hard courses like chemistry, it took my teachers a while to get used to it. And to be honest, we skipped half the lesson for them to just figure out how everything works and where the chat is, if they can see the chat when they're sharing their screen or not. It's just these little things that I feel like would have been really beneficial if they knew from the beginning.
Yeah, and not like it's one student or one teacher or one school. It's all of us getting through it together. So yeah, we'll need each other's help, but I think, yes, we can get that from this and be resilient.
And you can read more on our series, Schooling Under Stress, at cbc.ca/BC.
The May long weekend is coming up, and that means it's time to dust off the camping gear. But the pandemic means you won't be going far. How that's impacting the island, next.
Tonight, at least 6 people are dead after the eruption of Mount St. Helens volcano. A curfew is imposed on Miami, Florida, after a night of racial violence and rioting. And Claude Ryan cancels some of his public appearances because of illness.
The National with George McLean.
Good evening. A gigantic explosion and eruption rocked a large area around the Mount St. Helens volcano in Washington state today. At least 6 people have died, some of them apparently overcome by fumes, and 2,000 people have been ordered out of the area. The pilot of a light plane says the whole top of the mountain blew off in this morning's blast, the largest since it became active again in March. The noise of the explosion was heard 250 kilometers away, and the shock was felt in Vancouver, British Columbia, a distance of more than 300 kilometers. Colin Hoth reports.
The earthquakes and eruptions have continued through the day, but so far there's been no sign of any flow of lava from the summit. From the air tonight, the boiling cloud of smoke and ash, which rises 15 kilometers above the mountain, appeared as a solid black cliff face. Communities beneath it, across eastern Washington state, have been totally blacked out. As much as 4 centimeters of volcanic ash now covers the entire area. Residents have been advised to stay indoors. Streets are impassable to cars. Huge landslips from the north face of the mountain sent a 20-foot tidal wave down the Toutle River this morning. It forced the closure of one interstate highway for a time. 20,000 people from communities around the mountain have been evacuated.
Within 10 minutes afterwards, a tremendous electrical
flashing, lightning, etc., for about 10-15 minutes. And then it started really pluming up out of the mountain itself. Very gray, brown ash, just very wide and solid. Almost looked like the core of a hydrogen bomb or an atom bomb plume going up.
U.S. Forest Service confirmed tonight that 5 people were known to have died at a logging camp. But there are fears that others as well may have been trapped. The area has been closed to the public as the rescue operation moves into high gear. Geologists are attempting to decide just what may happen next with the mountain.
This is the first volcano in North America in more than a century. The people of this normally peaceful corner of the United States are waiting nervously tonight to see if this is the climax of Mount St. Helens' performance, or if in fact there is worse to come. Colin Holt, CBC News at Portland, Oregon.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
May is Asian Heritage Month, and we're celebrating by sharing the stories of amazing Asian Canadians who are making meaningful contributions in the community. Visit cbc.ca/BC Community to learn more. And never miss an episode of your favorite CBC drama or comedy again with the free CBC Gem app. Plus, you can live stream CBC Vancouver News. Check it out at gem.cbc.ca.
Okay, some good news tonight if you've run out of pandemic activities. Some of Vancouver's outdoor pools are set to open Saturday.
It starts with pools at Kitts Beach, Second Beach, and the new Brighton Pool, with more set to reopen in June and July. Lifeguards will also be posted at designated swimming areas at 10 Vancouver beaches starting on Saturday, and spray parks will reopen as well.
Johanna Wagstaffe back with us. That'll be nice. A little outdoor pool action, but of course, why don't we talk about snow?
Oh.
Yes. Why don't we follow up pools opening with fresh snow falling across the south coast at elevation, but still. There is fresh snow for our local mountains. Whistler got a dumping today, and yes, the Coquihalla, 5 to 10 centimeters. Let me start you off with the current temperatures because it's cold behind that cold front last night that sparked up the line of thunderstorms. 13 right now at YVR, 12 down towards Victoria. Temperature's a good 3 to 4 degrees below seasonal today. And we did see some good convective activity. Not the line we had last night, the sort of reminiscent of a prairie thunderstorm line or a good old Southern Ontario cold front. This was more classically Vancouver today. Isolated cells through Delta, Surrey, Maple Ridge led to some downpours as well as small hail. That will continue tomorrow. Look at that. Special weather statement also in place for the Coquihalla and Highway 3 for 5 to 10 centimeters. Get through an unsettled Wednesday, just a slight risk of a thunderstorm, not as great for tomorrow. And then we get a little offshore high pressure system. Kind of pool weather, wouldn't you say, as we head into the high teens, probably low 20s inland. Good start to our long weekend. We'll need the rain by Sunday, but unfortunately, it's not a classic Mike weekend. The rain will come in earlier than the Monday.
As long as we get a bit of sunshine, I think we can keep Mike happy.
I think so too.
Thanks, Joe. Well, Vancouver Island campgrounds will be full to capacity this long weekend, but don't expect to see anyone from the mainland. Unlike most years, Vancouver Islanders will be the only people filling campsites. Island Health has mandated campers declare their home address when booking sites. BC Ferries is checking for non-essential travel, and anyone arriving from outside the region could be fined.
The island here is quite good, the case count, compared to the mainland, so we should just leave it this way for a while, I guess.
Campground operators are asking island visitors to abide by the COVID-19 protocols, which do remain in effect.
Yeah, a bit of an island camping bubble, I guess, at least for the time being.
Right. That's it for our show tonight. You can always watch our newscasts online, cbc.ca/BC.
Next local news, 11 o'clock with Dan Burrett after the National. Thanks for watching tonight. Have a good evening.